Welcome back, everyone, to the Nrgy Speaks Live podcast. I'm Nrgy, the self-mastery coach, speaker, court-registered mediator, and author. On this channel, I work with high achievers who want to achieve self-mastery. So we discuss topics involving personal development and self-improvement. And throughout the episode, you will receive practical tips and strategies that you can take action on today. My guest for today is Ben. And so Ben, will you please introduce yourself to our listeners and just let them know about your relation or your connection to some of the topics that we will discuss today?
Thank you for having me on. I do very much so appreciate it. My name is Ben, and I go by Ben. I coach Ben, and I train high-level athletes. And so that's going to be not just athletes as in the common sense that we know, where it's the person that's performing maybe a sport, but also the individual who is the entrepreneur. And then what does that look like around their environment? And so I've worked with Olympic level athletes, and then real estate moguls who are trying to run their businesses and traveling quite a bit. My background is I went to Texas A&M University in Texas, and I studied sport conditioning, and I was able to do some studying in genetics research, where we did like stuff on makeup. We did stuff with the couch potato gene, or how dopamine receptors in the brain work, and how we can have our diet kind of dictate what that looks like in how we move our bodies. And so if like the Western diet is kind of doesn't allow for that dopamine receptor to work very well, versus what we called a chow diet was what we were giving our mice. And so we did research like that. And then I was also able to work in the #1 creatine research lab in the world with Dr. Kreider. And so we did a lot of creatine stuff. And then my master's is in exercise science and coaching education. So we are geared towards athlete monitoring. And so we are looking at how this person is over a 4-year period able to excel and then maintain progress through their training programs. So we do stuff like looking at urine samples that from day to day, and if you're not hydrated enough, you're not going to be allowed to train for the day. And then we look at 4-year programs, because we were a site for like the bobsled team for Team USA to compete at. And the gentleman who runs the program is the head exercise was the head exercise physiologist for the Team USA. And so I've competed for Team USA myself. And now, I've worked at country clubs doing, working with the top 1% of earners or wealth in the US. And so now we live in Vegas and we're existing out here.
Oh, wow. Very interesting, very exciting. Sounds like you have had quite a bit of history there.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, good deal. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I want to go ahead and talk about the importance, in your opinion, what's the importance of being intentional and self-aware?
I think that it's the only reason that we are able to thrive in the world. I think that it's the key behind understanding how to progress and make the right decisions at the right times. I can see I always thought about, I wrote something down quite a while ago where I made a circle, and I think I thought about it as that the center of life, or the center of my circle, was the goal that I had. And the goal was mastery, self-mastery. And I had all these different lanes, and in each one of these lanes I thought of it as grass, right? And I have my lawnmower, and maybe I'm starting with clips at the very beginning. As I'm starting my journey, I don't have the tools necessary to really attack the problem. But on the outside, the problems are usually pretty easy, right? And so I'm going out with some scissors and cutting around, and I have my professional life, I have my personal or romantic relationships, and I have finances, and then hobbies. I have all these things that make up my circle, and I can clip away at these things almost simultaneously, and I can, as I'm working on one area, maybe in more particular than others, so I'm really trying to get very good in my career. Then, as I'm out on that outside, and I'm learning how to cut my grass in that area, I continue to gain these new skills that are going to transfer out to others, and I'm going to develop my tools. Now, my tool is now maybe not a a scissor, but now I have like a push lawnmower, right? And so I've leveled up, right? I've gained the experience that the world has offered me a new opportunity to now push my lawnmower. And then as I get to new objectives inside of each one of these lanes, I've come up with new problems, and I'm forced in that moment to either walk away from that problem and stop progressing, and then ultimately everything around that circle will also stop progressing as well. There's going to be a cap. So if I can learn how to get through that problem in that lane, I gain a new tool, I gain new experience that's ultimately transferable to another area of my life, so that next time I might see something similar in a romantic relationship as I do in a hobby, I can recall back, oh, this is what I did when I approached this problem, when I had this issue. I already have this in my toolbox. I pull it right out and I keep on mowing. And so it gives me a different perspective ultimately on how to approach more areas of my life that make me a better person. But I need to be able to have the intention to want to be better, not just for myself, but for my people around me. So I think anybody who's a high achiever, that's running a company, that's running businesses, that's dealing directly with people's livelihoods, it's something that separates those who are the high achievers and who are not, that can say, today I'm reading these books because I need these skills, because whenever somebody comes to me next time, I'm going to have that tool. And that tool again, is working on that career. And then you find that communication in your personal relationships syncs up with your professional relationships. You're like, wow, I have all these really cool tools that I can use that are making me a better person and improving my overall environment.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, are there what did you do to help yourself kind of go through, like if you're on that particular path for in one area, what steps did you take, or what can you share with the listeners that are very practical for them to kind of start taking those steps as well?
I think the that I'm going to use weightlifting or being in the gym as my example, because that's where I've spent a lot of my time. That's where I think a lot of people spend their time now. It's as that area keeps on growing. It's starting, right? It's taking the first step initially just to say, it's looking in the mirror and saying, hey, maybe I don't like exactly what I'm doing or what I look like, or when I bend down, I feel like my back's hurting. And like, that's the initial, like, this is your time to wake up, and taking the step to say, okay, now I'm going to go to the gym, and maybe I don't know what I'm doing. So then ask,
Mhm.
put the ego aside for a moment and ask somebody that knows more than you on what to do, if that's within your capability, right? Not everybody has the ability to just hire a trainer or hire a coach, but I can also ask Google. I can ask something as simple as, or starting on the elliptical, or starting on recalling the things that you did back in high school, that, or in elementary, that we all did in recess, that maybe we don't understand the order that they're supposed to be done in, but you took the step to do 15 minutes of in the sauna, and which I'd recommend everybody to do 15, 20 minutes in the sauna, It's great for cardiovascular health, reduces risk of cardiovascular disease by about 56%, 15 to 20 minutes for 4 times a week, which is beautiful. And it's also reduces risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. So good for brain health, good for heart health. It has to do with a lot with the heat shock proteins that are working, but big recommendation there as a start. And that's a good warm up. And that's all you did for the day, then great. Right. But it was taking the step to walk into the location or starting the project and initiating and then asking. You look at your community, understand that I don't know everything, and that's okay, but somebody else does. And so what can I learn and improve? And now this is going to be, I'm improving my communication. I'm allowing myself to be humble enough and put my ego aside. What does that do when you're in a project? I used to build houses as well. If I go to a plumber and say, hey, I don't really know what's going on right now, but this is my issue. What do you recommend? And then what that does to build a trusting relationship moving forward is massive. And then my jobs move faster. Everyone's a little happier. Like it again transfers into other areas. So I initially took the first step of stepping in the gym. And then after being in the gym, I found help. I found a coach, and I found somebody who just knew more than me. And then as I continued to ask more people around the gym, then I could kind of pick and choose, okay, that information is good. This information is bad. I get better discernment being in that area. So exposure, right? Exposure is key. So yeah, I would say that those are definitely some good ideas there.
I like what you said about even if you have to go to your past and use whatever skills or experiences that you may have done before, even just to get started, then do that. I made sure to write that, take a note about that. And ultimately, I got out of that was to just find resources, free or paid, it doesn't matter. Find resources, reach out for help, ask questions, put your ego to the side, and just get started. Take that first step, because for a lot of people, that first step is the most difficult part of making any sort of change or going along a journey of some sort of growth. And a lot of people would rather wait until they have all the information. They have all, everything is right there. They have this big game plan and they never get started because there's a missing piece somewhere. And it's like, no, come on, get started, get going. Once you kind of get the momentum going and you get it, it starts to build, then that's where more of the answers will come, more pieces will start to fit, and yeah, you'll start getting to moving towards the ultimate goal. And that would be one thing that I'll also add is you do have to have a goal in mind. So a lot of people will just kind of do things just to be doing things, just to move. Have some sort of goal in mind and then go ahead and get started. So was that just step number one, or was it a bunch of steps in one?
I think I'm gonna piggyback off of what you said as well.
Okay,
I think
okay.
yes, we're using our resources and those things. You said I'm not taking notes, but I probably should. That's a good idea. So if you don't mind, just recall the two items that you had initiated or you discussed.
So I was talking about finding resources, whether they are free or paid. And then I also really pointed out what you were saying about going to your past, whatever experiences that you have or whatever you did when you were younger or whatever you can pull from that you've done before, use that as well. And you were talking about getting more exposure, asking more questions, putting the egos to the side.
So I think it's having this plan that I think that we do right then, and without taking initiative, because you don't know if you're going to need the weights today or if you're going to need them next week until you get started. And so you don't even know what weights to use. And if you have this elaborate plan of the first week I'm going to do 10 pounds, second week I'm going to do 15 on my curls, and then 20, 25, 30. And then you realize that's a lot of progress really fast. Like I'm going to go from curling 15 pounds to 30 pounds in 4 weeks. Any athlete is like, good luck, like that sounds like a really good idea. But it doesn't make practical sense. So we start with the 15s and then you get 2 weeks in and you're like, man, this is still kind of difficult. What else can I do to add on to this that would make it a little easier or give me a better understanding of what the future looks like. Because I didn't have any perspective when I first started. My perspective was limited, or just it wasn't as advanced. And now that I'm engaging, now I have a perspective that is more long term and more realistic. And so now I'm saying, okay, maybe I can do 15 pounds for 2 weeks, and then I can do 22 pounds for 5 weeks because I progressed, this percentage in this amount of time. And you're taking notes and you're writing it down and you're asking friends, like, does that make sense? And then you listen to your body and you be present in that moment and say, oh, wait, maybe I need to regress a little bit because this week it's too hard and I haven't slept enough. Oh, hey, look at that. Now I've added an additional piece into this journey that again is going to add in other areas of my life. Now I'm going to focus a little bit more on my sleep. Well, what does sleep really look like? Well, my ideal temperature range is about 66 to 68 degrees at night for the best possible sleep. Perfect. Minimal light. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to add these two little pieces. Guess what? It works. Awesome. But then maybe a couple of weeks comes down the line and you're having a hard time with your sleep. So you add in an additional piece, and that new piece is like magnesium at the end of the night, a great way to relax. So then I start doing Epsom salt baths. It helps me with my soreness that I've been having, and I'm also able to sleep a little bit better at night. We're winning. It's always adding that extra little step that's going to end up leading to the right direction, but you don't know if you're going to need Epsom salt baths until you start training, right? You got to start, So I think that yes, it is the first step, but it's just like how it's so transferable into other areas where it's going to be the first step that ends up turning into 7 or 8 to 10 different things that are going to be the next first step in something else. And I think sometimes it can get overwhelming, but you're slowly changing your personality. You're the person that you're becoming in 6 months is going to be a much more advanced human just because you took that one step. And you're going to look back 6 months from now and be grateful that it was hard, that it sucked, that you felt like you didn't know what you were doing, because even those who have been doing this for a long time, like the other day I was benching and I had a client tell me, I just didn't feel very good when I felt like my bench was too high, or I felt like maybe I just didn't feel comfortable. And I was like, it's okay. There's days, most days, in fact, where I don't feel comfortable benching, but it's a constant goal and an advancement. And I'm going to tweak this a little bit. I'm going to tweak that a little bit. Ooh, that one felt really good. Ooh, that one felt really good. Oh, now to have as much leg drive this rep, right? And so like it's constant. Like I think everybody is going through that process. You're not alone. We're all at any level constantly improving ourselves. And I think that's the beautiful part about the journey. And I think the better part is having a community of people around you that are helping you along the way, that are, hey, like you talk to the guy next to the gym that you see every single day, that you finally say, hey man, like, what's your name? And like having that community it just changes the game. And now it's a fun time. And then you see Steve and his wife and his kids, and you're like, man, like what a cool time. And now you've again added different areas or made everything a little bit more complex and a little bit more integrated.
Yes, just get started. Just get started. And another thing that you mentioned, I want to point out really quickly. You mentioned that listen to your body. Your body will tell you a lot. And especially the part where you were talking about if you need more sleep. Yes, because a lot of people, they are going through a lot of stress, chronic stress for lack of sleep. They're just exhausted. So listen to your body, because your body will help guide you along the way, and your body will let you know what you need, what you don't need, what you need more of, what you may need less of. So definitely listen to your body and ultimately just get started. Anything else we need to add into those practical tips for those who are wanting to just actually get started and be intentional about self-awareness?
Journaling.
Nice.
I don't know if you journal, but I find journaling to be very helpful. And I think that can be both written or voice memos. I'm not always just like, I don't have the time just to write down. Sometimes I'm just driving and I have a thought, or I'm having anxiety on the way to a meeting, on away to a client, leaving from a client or a meeting, and I just need to talk it out. I am the person that needs to just say it out loud. And then I hear myself say something ridiculous. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Oh, I guess I don't really think that. Okay, cool. Like, and then we move on, right? And it gives me some solace in that moment to say that things are okay. And so I think voice memos are absolutely wonderful. And I also believe that physical writing is also valuable as well. And that could be writing letters to yourself, just writing what you did at the end of the day. I like writing what I did at the end of the day as well. And also to start the day, just I will be intentional. I will be grateful today. And validating those things inside of your head and just taking the time to be present. And I know that's easy. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean, Ben? It's like, take a breath. What do you smell? Do you smell anything around you? Because right now I smell paint because I just painted the studio, right? And it's like, oh, that's a moment just to bring me here right now today. Listen to the voice. What is it saying to you? Is it the rhythm that's getting at you? Is it the tone? Is it like, what do you feel? Like, what are the textures? All those things that can help, little tools that can bring you to now, to today, to present, that help you be more intentional in that moment with the people that you're with. And so whenever I'm sitting across from you, I can look into your eyes and say, oh, like we're having a conversation. We're listening, we're talking, we're communicating. And then hopefully that my goal is the people that are listening as well can take and hear and apply, right? So like have that intention, come into that within your intention, and then be present with that and hope for that and move towards that goal.
Yes. And for those who aren't familiar with journaling or it's not a part of their routine, one of the things that I tell or coach my clients on doing it just to kind of help them get going, especially for those who are like, yeah, every day, I'm probably not going to be able to do that right away. That's okay. So, one of the things that I'll suggest is at least once a week, towards the end of the week, write down, take time, be intentional, step away from everything else, all distractions, and write down at least 3 wins for that week. What things worked well for you, what things that you overcome, and then also write down what lessons that you learn. Basically, the things that kind of had you go a little bit deep, have to dig a little bit deeper, in order to get through it or to overcome it. So, if just to begin your journaling process and to start making it a habit and to start adding it to your daily routine, start off by at least doing it once a week where you're writing down at least your 3 wins for that week and the things that you can work on also for that week. I
I
like
like
it. I
that. That's
like
a good
it.
one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Good deal. So, the first practical tip overall in a nutshell was to start, take that first step. The second thing is journaling. Is there a third?
Let's think. So I like, I don't know that I'm gonna say to move, right? And I mean intentional exercise. And I know that my example initially was exercise, but I think having exercise included in our life, if that's walking, it we know through a lot of science that this is good for our mental health, right? And it helps me be present. And it gives me time to think and sit and talk and with myself or just disassociate from all the other stuff that was going on, step away from those things, let my subconscious mind continue to work on them. If it's going to work on them, there's always stuff that's working on the background. But in that moment and in that present, I can listen to the birds or I am right by the road, so I listen to the cars going by. But you know what, like it's something that just it gets me out. And so I think like moving is a big part, and whatever that movement for you is, that could be running, that could be walking, that can be lifting weights, whatever that may be. It's I think very important to move our bodies.
100%. I'm going to add to that. So let's just say if it's during the course of a workday for a lot of people, unfortunately, a lot of people, especially if they have like a desk job, they're sitting at their desk for hours at a time and they don't allow themselves to move intentionally. So, one of the things that I will also suggest is even during the day, if you are working in an office or you're working from home, you're constantly in front of a computer, in front of computer screens, or a phone job, be intentional about scheduling little short breaks in order to allow yourself to move, because movement is so needed and very helpful as well to just mental health, emotional health, the physical health. Absolutely, movement and intentional movement, I like that. So what I want to do is kind of segue, staying within the intentional space, but we're going to segue into the intentional selecting of relationships. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think that's a tough one at times. And I I personally have gone through a lot of therapy in my life. And I think having that person in my life to help me understand these things has been very valuable. I understanding that the way people converse and how people choose to live their lives ultimately affects us. I think a common phrase is your network is your net worth. And I do like that one quite a bit. And I think part of it is just the conversations that are happening, the events that people are going to. Are we going to go to the bar to go drink? Or are we going to a mixer that happens to be at a bar that we're not going to drink at, but we're meeting people, sharing contacts, and then this just happens to be the place where we're gathering? Those are two very different people and two very different communities. And I can choose my friends that way. And I think sometimes it's almost demonized or looked down upon when people are like, oh, you're just going with them because they have more money. And it's like, no, it's not the money. It's the way that they are choosing to live their life is something that I want to do. Do I also want to make more money? Yes. But I want to live a better life. And just because people make more money doesn't mean that they're living a better life. They could still be going out and drinking and partying and using their money in a way that you wouldn't agree with. That's still not a person that I want to associate myself with. I want to associate myself with people that I want to be like, or that I can learn from, or that, I mean, preferably that I can learn. I want to learn from as many people as I possibly can. And understanding that those relationships aren't always just only what I can get out of the person, but what I can give to them as well. Right. It's everything is long term. I don't believe in having relationships for a short period of time whatsoever. Even if I just podcast with somebody, my goal is that I see that person again in 2 years and or shorter, depending on whatever that relationship allows for. And we're like, man, you're podcasting still too? So am I. Like, let's trade episodes. Like, let's come on. How can we help each other? How can we continue to grow? And then as that relationship develops, there's also going to be a sense of trust that continues to develop. And I think that it takes time to develop that trust. And so if you really, really want to build the relationships, like you find specific people you want to build relationships with, understand that it's going to take time. But you have to be vulnerable. You have to be honest and can't just expect that they're going to be honest with you, because what we get is who we are. What we put out there is what we get. So if I'm going to be this person who holds my cards tight to my chest and I'm lying to people, and then I'm like, man, everyone out here is just liars. Well, why? Look at your surroundings. Yes, maybe that's your reality, but why is that happening? Have you created that environment around yourself where you are not treating people with kindness? And so now everybody in your community is just trying to get at each other and seeing what they can get out of each other. Who is deciding who is propagating this environment? Oh, wait, that's me? What do I need to do to improve?
Yes. So you mentioned vulnerable. So a lot of my listeners, my audience is mostly men. What can you share, or as a man, to men, for them to see, for them to start being more vulnerable? and not letting that fear overtake them and keep them holding things back.
That's a good one. I was very distrusting of people, very distrusting. And it took me a long time to finally say, you know what? I am going to be the person that leads with honesty. And if the other opposing individual, and sometimes the unfortunate reality is that some people are going to use that in an unhealthy way. But then you recognize where they stand and it cleans your community that much faster. You get rid of all of the quote unquote other that you're not looking for in your life. And then you just have this like really strong, very healthy community very quickly. You can recognize it because maybe you've been there where you're distrusting or where you've been the deceiver, and you can see it and you know that's not a person I want to do business with. That's not a person that I want to be a friend. That's not a person that I'm going to invite to my house. Right? Like it's, can I cuss on this?
Sure. Yeah.
It's like a fuck it attitude, right? It's it if they're going to do that, they were already going to. That's the person they are. Let them. Let them do that, right? Let them be deceitful. But living in a place of fear does absolutely nothing for you and your community. Everybody is looking for somebody to be the leader, to be the person that's willing to step up and be the better person. And everybody, I feel, is I think we hear like, oh, everybody's just so like, they make just generalizations of negativity in entire like communities, and like everybody in Las Vegas has a certain mentality. And it's like, you're in Las Vegas. Does that mean that you're that person? Like that you're including yourself in that bit because you live here. So be the change you want to see, step up, and then just don't, because it doesn't exist everywhere. Right? There's pockets of it everywhere. There's never a way to get out of it, but be the change you want to see, and then be the leader around, even if it's just in your workplace, the person that's finally steps up and say, hey, like you're always late. Like, why are you always late? Or, hey, why are you always just being negative? And it's a question. It's not an attack. It's a question. And if that person that's what they've been programmed to do all this time, and they finally have somebody to check them, but not by being like, hey, dude, you're being an asshole. That's what they're putting out, and that's what they're expecting to get back. It's the question of, why are you being this way? Be curious. Look for understanding where that other person is coming from. And a lot of times they don't realize that they're being that way. They're just programmed to like, this is normal, and it's not normal. So I think it's just, don't let other people down. You have an entire community that you can continue to lift up with you. Bring them with you. Like, step up. I think it's a beautiful opportunity. It's a beautiful place to be. And other people are going to step up around you and then lead you just as much as you're leading them. It's not one or the other. It's, now I've led somebody, and then now I'm going to do something. Like, it's something as simple as I have something in my teeth. And so I tell somebody, hey man, you have something in your teeth. And they're like, oh, hey, like, thanks, man. And then next day, my shirt's on backwards. They're going to tell me, hey, your shirt's on backwards. Because now we've created an environment where we're going to be supporting each other. And then everybody is on the up. Everybody's winning, all because you had one person that initiated some honesty, some vulnerability. It's a massive win.
It absolutely is. You mentioned so many things. If I tried to catch as many as I could, but be the person that leads with honesty. I'm just going to let that sit for just a second. Be the person that leads with honesty. And for a lot of people, that's the scary part, being the first, being the one that steps out first, being the one that exposes themselves first, but someone has to do it. And that's the, I'm going to segue into your next thing. That's where being vulnerable cleans your community faster because it allows you to identify the others. That was so good, Ben.
Thank you.
All right. And then trust. Trust takes time to develop. So for those who have tried to trust over the years in platonic relationships and intimate relationships, and they just keep being they have the sense of being defeated, they have the sense of just constantly being let down and disappointed. What can you say to that person that's listening of how, what do they need to do to continue the process of building trust instead of just giving up?
I think even though it's hard and we have those traumas that are they're deep and some of those cuts hurt, but still being the person that's going to be the one that leads with trust and understand that trust deepens with time. I think that trust does take time to deepen. I think I would correct my statement to not necessarily develop, but it takes time to deepen trust. And I think that it can be especially again after traumatic issues, but leading with trust and just hoping, like you just hope, like what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to find out that they weren't the person. Okay, so then there's going to be somebody else. There's going to be the next person because they do exist. There's good people out there. People are innately good, but maybe you can ask why. Why'd you do that? And a lot of times, again, it's I've been in relationships where it's just like, why did you? Maybe I don't know, maybe a ridiculous example, but like, why did you clean my car? Like, that didn't make me feel like, are you looking for something out of my car? No, I thought it'd be something kind to do. Oh, well, in my last relationship, that person would like snoop into my stuff. So I'm sorry that I assumed that you were looking for something and not just asking, right? And so we ask, and before we have that reaction, ask the question, get the data, and then say, this was either okay or this wasn't. And you can tell in that moment of, well, I don't know, like why is it even dirty? Right. Okay. Well, then if you're going to approach me with a negative confrontation that I'm not looking for, either we have some deep traumas that person hasn't dealt with, or you were right. And yeah, maybe that's not the person that we keep in this close community. They have their own stuff going on. And they also need time. They need the self-reflection and the tools themselves to have their own development. It doesn't mean that you're responsible for their development. If you'd like to, then sure, take that attempt and do your thing. But you don't have to stay there. You can decide, this was my boundary. I am out. And that's respectful. That's respectful for yourself and for the other individual, because ultimately it teaches them, maybe I ask before I do these things. It teaches them how to operate in what is a healthy relationship. But a lot of us have experienced unhealthy relationships. So we're constantly learning. There's different backgrounds, there's different expectations. And so it's just communicating effectively with the other individual, I think, is the biggest part. Communicate well.
Yes. So we've talked about trust. You've mentioned boundaries, traumas, being vulnerable. How can we help people with managing their emotions? Let's talk about that.
That's a good one. So I consider myself somewhat of I read Stoic philosophy, right? So Stoicism, I like Marcus Aurelius, meditations and stuff like that. And so the emotions originate from thought, right? So if I'm intentional, if I'm conscious, if I'm awake, and I see that thought come into my head, I decide what to do with it. In that moment, I say, I don't like that she did that. I don't like that he did that. And then that is what brings that emotion in. So then instead of allowing that emotion to exacerbate because we're ruminating on it, I don't like that you did it. I don't like that it happened. I don't like the way that happened. And then now we get more and more flustered, more and more angry. And then it like finally builds and then comes out. It's recognizing I didn't like that. And then this is the being vulnerable or being honest, opening up with honesty and saying, hey, I didn't like that. And sometimes people can perceive that as like as aggressive or like, oh my God, like that was aggressive. I think it can come off as aggressive, but it's being honest. Hey, I didn't like that you did that. And the way you deliver that information is also important. If you're yelling at this person and you're no longer controlling your emotions and they're controlling you, then we're taking steps back because that person is only going to hear the tone and not the words. And you're creating, again, an environment that's not going to allow for open and honest communication. And so I stop and I think, okay, I don't like this thing. Now, is this something that is my own issue, that is my own trauma that I am now projecting out onto this person? Is this just a preference? Hey, I don't like it when you do my laundry. I don't like it when you don't chew your, I don't know, right? Whatever it is in your situation, then that's okay. But if it's, hey, and it's also okay to be open and say, hey, I was cheated on in the past. That person would always cover their phone. And finally, one day I turned over the phone and I saw a message from somebody else. And that now is something that just makes me uncomfortable. That person, if they really, really to truly care and understand, will both be able to hear you out and say, hey, there's several different ways of remedying that problem. I can leave my phone up. I will give you the password to my phone. I can put my ringer on, whatever it may be. You have whatever steps that you and your partner, your friend, your significant other, that you guys have decided for what's going to work within your relationship. And if that gives you comfort and you're like, oh, wow, like this was awesome, this worked, fantastic. And if it doesn't, again, hey, I'm going to bring this up again because I'm still not super comfortable about it. This is what I'm feeling. This wasn't the good fix for us. Okay, well, what can we do next? It's a conversation. It's not perfect. You're not going to get it right on the first time, but being continuously open to evolving and understanding to see what the moment's at and recognizing that feeling and then acknowledging it in a way that is healthy. Like, we can't escape the emotion, right? I had a big problem of not letting myself feel anything until I had a therapist that was like, did you just recognize that? Like, you just skipped over that? And I was like, you're so right. That's weird. It's like, sit in it. It's okay to be sad. You're here as a human to feel all these emotions. You can feel them, understand them, and then communicate them. It's a step. It's a process. And you can still, in that moment of communicating, be sad. Hey, I'm really sad about the other day that we didn't get to go out the other night. I don't feel good about it, and I want us to remedy that issue. I still feel sad, but I'm not bawling. I'm collected. And I'm effectively communicating that feeling. So put words to it, right? I think, and it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. Term it. We have 6 fundamental emotions. I'm going to forget some of them, I'm sure, but anger, sadness, surprise, disgust, happiness, and oh man, there's another one. And so be able to identify those at their roots, and then they can combine to make certain other emotions. And then now you're an emotionally intelligent individual. I mean, get out of here. I mean, you're talking about the next level. You are leveling up just by doing those small things. It's crazy, the ripple effect. It's beautiful.
It is, especially when you have been successful, even just one time. But when you start seeing the pattern of you being successful at controlling your emotions and not letting your emotions control you, it's like, what? Like there's this new, what do they call it? A new lease on life. Because it's like, oh my gosh, like I can actually enjoy life. Like I don't have to get mad at every single thing every time that I turn around, or every person that comes at me or comes to me. I'm not automatically on the defense. It's amazing, the peace that you have, the lightness that you feel. Ah, yes, it's so awesome. And I like you summed it up in 3 steps, 3 words: feel, understand, and communicate effectively.
Like that's very simple. I mean, who doesn't have a phone? And you can communicate to, even just if you get 200 people to listen to your video, think about that. Think about what a classroom of 200 people is. I graduated in a high school class of 250 people. To have 250 people listen to what you say is making a difference, and communicate to things that you know, right? Like, I know things about health and fitness. So then this is how you can do a figure four stretch while you're sitting at the desk. And if 3 people looked at that and were like, that's a good idea, I'm going to start doing that. Great. If I'm not going to go to a chef and tell them, actually, I would cut it like this. Right. But if I see somebody at, um, at a dance class, I like dancing. So if I see somebody else who needs help, then be the person that steps up and say, hey, like, I can show you these couple moves, right? And so it can be, I think, virtual. I think we can do it in a physical realm where we go to locations, and that could be in, I think bars tend to be where like mixers happen for whatever reason, but you can go to a bar and communicate with other individuals and ask, like, hey, what do you need? Like, how can I help you? Right. And if you want to get paid for it, then fine, but you don't have to. It could be just sitting down and having a conversation. How many times did somebody help me personally? I don't know about anybody else, but how many times somebody helped me by just, oh, like, there's somebody over here that I know that's good at that item. Like, if you're not, like, let me go ahead and just connect you guys. What is that going to cost me? Time? And not even that much time? And what could it do for that person for the rest of their lives? You can send them an entire track with that one text, with that one person what they meet. And if you can directly have an influence and, like, hey, I'm a business coach, this is what I do, this is what I offer, then fantastic. Like, great, right? But that's not going to be what everybody needs. Some people, it's just, hey, I have a really hard time with a legal case. Well, I have 5 clients who are all attorneys, and then 5 other friends that are attorneys. What kind of attorney are you looking for? Well, they're not any of those, but I'm sure that Steve over there has a good connection in that space. So let me connect you with Steve, and you guys can go ahead and figure out who's going to be the best fit for you. I think people are willing to work for you so long as, like, you ask them and you communicate and you're vulnerable and you're open. And so I think I think going to Chamber of Commerce meetings is another good one. Like, something super simple, but get involved. Go to the Chamber of Commerce. If you can, I don't know, depending on the city, some of them charge more than others, but get involved with that community and figure out how you can put up a tent somewhere, how you can be a counter at an event, right? And it's like somebody's trying to put on a 5K, but needs somebody who's gonna do a time stop. And again, like, what is that going to do for you? But, like, you can make such a big difference in somebody's life by just offering a small skill. Does that answer the question?
It does. It does. And the point that I'll pull out of that is like you said, people will help others naturally. It is like within us. If someone asks, like as humans, we want to help. We want to give back. We want to be of service. So that works for me.
Beautiful.
So I want to go to one of my favorite topics as we kind of start coming towards the end of things. But let's talk about time management. How can you help those who are listening manage their time?
Oh, that's a rough one. Uh, I think anybody who's trying to do things in life is definitely can struggle in that area. So I would come back to my circle that I originally discussed, right? I have this quadrant. You can separate your quadrant and how many things that make sense to you, right? It can be as specific or as broad as you would like it to be. It could be as broad as relationships, and it can start broad and then get more specific. And so, how many hours or how much time am I putting towards these specific things at this time of my life? Understanding that there's going to be times and days where maybe our traditional Monday through Friday is very career heavy, right? I'm putting a lot towards doing the job. But then within the job, I also want to make sure that I'm continuously progressing in my skill set for that job. So that might be a subsect in there, right? And so am I spending no time every single week improving my skills? That's kind of a problem. It can start with 15 minutes. And that's 15 minutes that could be of podcasting. That can be 15 minutes of, or listening to a podcast. That can be 15 minutes of a book read, of a course maybe that you're applying for that you got into, right? But it's a short period of time. And then you figure out that 15 minutes is all that I need per week to help continue to progress me. And it's something that I'm comfortable with that doesn't take away from my other circles, because I need to look at my relationships and then my health. So am I putting no effort into my personal relationships? I don't have any friends. And then my spouse is at home and not doing well, or my kids are at home and I haven't seen them in 4 days. Like, again, that raises some awareness. What am I doing here? I need to give, and then you should have some minimums for some things. An hour a day for working out, for movement, right? It doesn't, again, working out, I think people can perceive that as like roughing it, right? It doesn't need to be roughing it, but an hour a day of a walk, of a run, of a something, an hour a day of a conversation with a friend, right? Little things like that okay, now I'm building my clock. An hour a day of 2 hours for eating. So maybe I take an hour for lunch and an hour for dinner. And during my dinner time, I am sitting with my kids, right? We can make these things layer on top of each other. And we can also have other times that are just intentionally set to just spend time and sit 15 minutes with my kid at the end of the day and ask, how are you doing? Everything at school okay? Anything that I can help with? Okay. Is there anything that I'm not doing? Okay, well, awesome. I'd love to hear it. This is what I would hope to move forward with. And then take those notes and figure out how much time that's going to take. And be realistic with the other person. Well, I'm not seeing you every single day, Dad. I'm sorry, son. I work between these times. I'm trying to provide you a life as well. I love you. But this is the amount of time that's realistic for us to do. And then if I do the opposite and I say, oh, you're so right. Every single Saturday from here until the end of the year, we're going to spend every Saturday together. You're setting yourself up for failure, but even more so, you're setting your kid up for failure. And then they get 3 months down the road and Dad's not here every weekend, but he said he was. So now the trust from that kid to you as a parent has decreased significantly. To your employees, apply that again. You can apply these things to my employees. We're going to host a meeting every week. And then 2 weeks in, he's not even here. He's not even on time. Be realistic with what you can do with your time and then what you feel is needed for the task. Is it an hour a week that's necessary, or is it 3 hours a week that's necessary for meetings with your people? Depends on how big the company is. It depends how big your family is, right? Like it's going to take me probably longer to cook for a larger family. If I have 6 people that I'm feeding, it's going to take me a little bit longer than 2, right? It just is. And so just be realistic with those goals with yourself, and even more so with those that are around you, because you are making promises out loud to these people that value you, that care about your opinion, that whenever the next time you say something, it's going to carry that much more weight, and say, you know what, son, I'm going to be there tonight. And then they can rely on that and say, man, if dad says he's going to be there, he's going to be there. If mom says she's going to be there, she's going to be there. If she says she can't, or he says he can't, then they were honest. And you know what? If they were able to show up, then awesome. But if not, then they weren't ever let down. The expectations were met, communicated effectively, and met.
As soon as you said their expectations were met, I was literally writing down, set the proper expectations. Set proper expectations.
That's good. That's good.
That was good. That was good. So be intentional with your time that you're giving to things, and base the amount of time off of what's necessary, and be realistic. And the last thing I'm going to point out is you're making promises out loud to those who care about you. I love it. I love it. So, Ben, I don't know about you, but I think it is time for us to have a little more fun. And let's go ahead and segue into what I like to call my fun segment. So, this is where I am going to ask you 3 questions, and they have nothing to do with what we've talked about today, nothing to do with today's topics. And I want you to have fun with it. So, you can just answer out of the box. But my first question to you is, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Can I give you 2 of them?
Of course, the more the merrier.
Okay, then okay, we might have a couple. Wet socks. Not a fan at all. I mean, that's just not a good time. I sweat through my feet a lot. But if I get home and oh my God, they're disgusting. Breathing while eating. I don't know if you've ever seen that or heard of that, but if I'm around it, I am okay with it around like ramen. That's appropriate, right? Slurping's okay. I'm cool with it. But it's like, you didn't need to do that with that item. You know?
God.
Not using a blinker.
Really?
That's a pet peeve. If we're like changing lanes, not using a blinker, not a fan. Not a fan. Pet peeve. Buying plants and then not watering them. Now, I do this. I have to admit, I do this, but it's a pet peeve. If I see other people do it, I'm like, why'd you buy it? You know? So, just don't buy the plant. So there you go. Those are 3.
They were so random. That is hilarious. Okay. I have no idea what I want to ask next. Okay. Okay. Let me say, if you wow, if you could bring back a fashion trend, what would it be?
Ooh. This is a good one. Wearing suits, trousers. I love getting dressed up like that. Even at the airport, that's probably one of my favorite times to do it. It's wearing a blazer, getting some nice trousers, a nice top, and going to the airport. And people look at like, what is this guy doing? I don't know. I'm riding an airplane. But you know what? It's a fun time to get dressed up like that. Oh, I love that kind of stuff. And then I like fedoras. I like a good cap. I mean, fedoras, a Panama hat. I like that. I don't like feeling like I'm looked at weird whenever I'm wearing a hat out. So I would like that to come back as well.
I like your style.
Yeah.
Yes, bring it back. Bring that back. I have
We
some
got
fedoras that need to be dusted off.
There you go. There you go. You could be part of the change. There you start wearing your fedora.
Exactly. Good stuff. Okay, I want to do one more. Okay, if you had a song to sing at karaoke, what song would you pick?
I'm not gonna say I'm very good at singing this
Okay.
song. Okay. I want to take singing classes. This is like one of my like life's goals, and I've already found a teacher. We're gonna start doing it. I want to take singing lessons, but uh, por mujeres como tú. So it's just a song by Pepe Aguilar, and it is just an absolutely beautiful song. And so it's called again por mujeres muheres como como tu, and it's by Pepe Pepe, and usually it'll come right up, Pepe Aguilar. And it's just a beautiful song about, you know, for you. I think the biggest concept is for you. I will leave alcohol. I will leave everything behind. If it's for you, then I will do anything that's possible. And it's just it's a beautiful song.
Wow. Oh, wow. I'm glad you spelled it because I had no idea what I was writing. But I'm going, I will look that up after we are done to be able to
Please.
listen to it. And I hope I can find the lyrics and just kind of read what it's about. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you entertaining us during that fun segment. And so, as we start coming to a close, I want to give you an opportunity to share any last thoughts, any golden nuggets, any last takeaways that you would like to share from the topics that we covered today.
Be present. Understand that you have the power to change not just what is in your finite, maybe your household, your small community, but the things that we do create a significant ripple in the lives of people around us. The words that I say, the commitments that I make, how I carry myself, and how I treat others goes a very long way. It's saying good morning to the barista who's, you know, I say good morning at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I say good morning at all times, if it's at night. And part of the reason I do it, yes, it's funny, but part of the reason I do it is wake up. It's not morning. You're right. You're here right now. You're right. It's not morning. But you know what? It got you to smile. It got you to be present with me. We connected. It was a little different. But that person now is like, dude, this guy the other day said good morning. It was like 7 o'clock at night. But it's something that they can go and share. The things that we do create ripples. So you can decide on whether those ripples are positive or negative. Choose wisely, choose well. Just because other people have maybe put ripples in your life that were negative, it doesn't mean that you can't change the ripple that you have on your outside environment or on your world. I would say that's it.
Wow. I'm going to add to be present and be kind. Because, like you said, you just never know what a person, or I'll add to it, you never know what a person is going through. You never know how their morning got started, what type of news or information they came across or received at some point through the afternoon of their day. So being present and being kind and acknowledging the barista, acknowledging someone that's holding the door for you as you're walking through, acknowledging people as you're walking past them. That is an awesome way to end.
I
Thank
love it.
you again so much for your time and all of the valuable information that you have shared with myself and the listeners of this episode. I know it is going to help someone, if not many people. And I want to make sure that I give you the opportunity to share Where can we follow you? How can we support you? Let us know how we can connect with you. And if there's anything that you have going on from a business standpoint, or on your website or your social media, just let us know, because we would love to make sure that we stay connected.
Well, thank you very much again for the time. And I very much so enjoyed your questions. I think that this was a very fun environment that you've created. And so I very much so appreciate it. And I think that what you're doing is highly valuable. Um, you can find me at Ben Nevares at or on Instagram. And so that's Ben, and my last name is spelled Nevares. And I'm like that pretty much anywhere on TikTok and on Instagram. And then my podcast is called Ben Thinking. And so it's just Ben, just like my first name, Ben Thinking. And I'm on Spotify, Apple, pretty much anywhere you can find it. I do some audio or some video, but I'm mainly audio only. And I do coaching both for athletes and for business owners. And so entrepreneurs, I mainly focus around exercise physiology and strength and conditioning. And so if you'd like to get involved, you can just send me a message on Instagram, and I have my own app that we would work through on there. So, or off of there. So I thank you very much for the time, and follow me. I appreciate it. Follow the podcast. That's the biggest one. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Everyone, make sure you go check it out. Make sure you support and follow. And if you who are listening, if you would like to be a guest on the show, reach out to me. You can connect with me on YouTube by putting a comment below. And you can reach me via your favorite podcast platform as well by commenting there. Or you can go to my website, nrgspeakslife.com, and just let me know that you are interested in being a guest. Or if you would like a coach in the self-mastery field, reach out to me. You can go to my website and make an appointment on my calendar. I am offering complimentary consultations right now, so do not miss out on that opportunity. Thank you again to our guest, Ben, for just being so awesome. And you know how we end. You already know that when you master your mind, when you master your emotions, and when you master your assignment, you can live your purpose and live on purpose. Until next time, talk soon. Bye-bye.